Hey, Travis back here, Steven Struckbauer. We're going to show the operation of a brake can today. May seem like a 101 to a lot of people, mechanics, drivers, but there's a lot of people that really don't understand how they work, and honestly we've had a few people on Facebook even ask, can you explain the different cans and why are some bigger than others and how they actually work. So we thought, oh, that'd be a good video. You know, there's probably plenty of people that really don't completely understand it. So we're going to go through them. There's obviously way different sizes of the cans depending upon the size of the truck. This is pretty much what you'll find on a highway truck, which will be a service can, a dual brake can, which is basically your spring brake and service brake, and then what we use a lot of, and I don't know if everybody does, but a piggyback can, and I'll explain what we do with that, but we use lots and lots of these. So we'll just start out with the service can. You'll find this on the steer axle of most trucks. The reason it's a service can, or called a service can only, is because it does not have anything to do with park brake, you know, emergency brake, anything like that. It only applies air when the foot brake is pushed. You will see these on drive axles sometimes, but you will not see them on all the drives. So if it's a tandem drive, sometimes you'll see service cans on one axle and then what we call a maxi can or a spring brake can on the other axle. And it really is just how you order the truck. A lot of them will have 4 of these on the drives, some just 2. So we'll get into it here. Service brake. What there is a diaphragm in here. You can see this clamp is removable. This is a bigger diaphragm. This actually goes in this, but similar situation. There's a diaphragm sitting right there, and when air is applied, the diaphragm is pushed, which pushes the rod. So I'll show that real quick. We're just going to use the air hose to apply our air, but as you push the foot brake down, and we'll just apply this brake, it is going to get a little noisy here, but pops the can out. And obviously it doesn't wiggle like this when it's hooked to the truck, because you will have a slack adjuster here hooked to an S-cam and to the brake, plus the can's mounted to the truck, but for all purposes here at the table it's easier. But yeah, apply, and then when you take the air away, you remove your foot, removes the air, and the can goes back in. So service can only. Everything's serviceable here. You do not need to change the can. The only time you would need to change the can on this is if the bolts were broke. Maybe it was dented up in here. But you can just pull this clamp off, replace the diaphragm if you got a leaking can, and you're back in business. You do not need to replace the can, which I will explain on this. But some cans will have a clamp that is non-removable, and in that case you do have to replace the can. But don't let someone tell you that it always needs a can, because it does not. So on to the maxi brake is what a lot of people will call it. Dual brake chamber, emergency side, whatever. So we'll lay this on its side. The maxi can. So it's got 2 sides. Spring brake side this way, and the service brake side this way. So this piece from here out is actually the same as this piece. They both have a diaphragm, one here and one here. So as you apply the brake or release the brake, it actually puts air to the can. If your brakes are set, yellow button out, there is no air in this can whatsoever. You can't have a can leaking when the brakes are released, or when the brakes, when the brakes are applied, because there's no air in the can. I've already got myself mixed up. But so spring brake side, okay, we push the yellow button in the cab of the truck, puts air to the emergency side of the can. The park brake side allows the rod to come in. Pull the button, rod back out. There's a giant spring in here, non-serviceable. It's very dangerous, so do not remove the back clamp of this can. Most new cans now are coming with just a clamp that's non-serviceable. You cannot remove that. There are some older cans out there that will have the same type of clamp here and here. If you're removing a clamp, please know which side you're removing. Do not take off the back side. Really is recommended you take it to a shop that knows what they're doing with the spring brakes, so that no injuries occur, because they are very dangerous. So yeah, we'll put air to the can again by pushing in our yellow valve, just like that. And I got another air hose here that basically works as the service brake. So now our park brake is released, the rod's in. Now we're pushing on the brake again in the cab, and it will allow this side for the rod to come out and apply our brake the whole time going down the road, while we still got air applied back here. So a lot of times when you have a leak on a can, at least I do, I ask the driver, is it a service leak or an emergency leak? Most people sometimes cannot answer that question, and that's okay, because you don't really understand how the can works. If it's an emergency leak, it would be leaking right now. We have air to the can, we're not applying the brake, right? No air coming around these holes, around the back of the can, so this can is working properly. If you push the yellow button in, you automatically got a leak coming out of the can, then the emergency side is what's leaking. If you have a leak when you apply, so you apply and hold the foot brake down, and you have hissing coming out now, it's on the service side. And so that's easily serviceable with a diaphragm. So don't let someone try and sell you a can when you can easily remove the clamp, put a diaphragm in it, put it back together, and that will not leak. The only way you, again, just like this one, the only way you need to replace this can is if maybe a bolt broke off, they've come loose and dented up the case somehow, or if it's got the non-serviceable clamp on it and there's just no way to replace this diaphragm. So if it's a service leak, when you apply, it's a diaphragm every time, and it can be changed. I mean, they're 10, 12 bucks or something, real easy to change. So we'll let off the foot brake right there. We still got air to the back of the can, and we can still go down the road, okay, no air leaking. Okay, so that's the dual can. It performs two tasks. It is a brake, park brake, and a service brake all in one. Now we'll move on to the piggyback that we use a bunch of. Go ahead and set that brake up just like we pulled the yellow valve. Okay, this is the piggyback. What this is exactly this can. Okay, it's just the rear section of this can right there. So when we were talking about having air leaks on the service side or emergency side, if you have an emergency side air leak, okay, you can just replace the piggyback section. You do not need to replace the whole can. Again, you know, everybody wants to replace a whole can. It's more money. It takes more time. You do not need to replace the whole can very often. Very seldom you have to do that. So unless something has happened to where it mounts, you're good just to replace the piggyback side. Piggyback side will come like this with a clamp. So basically from here back will get replaced. We've got this apart here so we can show you how what's actually happening inside, so I don't have to take this can apart. But it's got a plunger in it. So there's a spring here, just like I told you on the spring brake. Okay, we'll apply. Right now this plunger is out, which is pushing the rod out. Okay, as we put air to this side of the can, the plunger comes in, which releases our brake. And then, if it was actually put to this can, we can work the service side. Then when you set up the brake, it just pulls the plunger, pushes it back out, which in turn pushes the diaphragm, which pushes this little plunger, which is just a shortened rod here, and pushes that out. Looks like that. That sets your park brake. And that's basically it. I mean, There's technique to changing this stuff. You know, you got to release the air at a certain time, back the brake off at a certain time, and we may do that in a later video, and we'll show you right on a truck how to go ahead and change the piggyback side. That would probably be a good thing to do on the truck so it's more visible of exactly what it takes. But yeah, hopefully that's enlightened you a little bit on how the spring brake can works. You know, even if you're not in trucking or in the mechanic world, as you're going down the road, you will see these hanging off the bottom of a truck, and you know, you'll know that there is air to the back side of the can, and that can is what applies the brakes. Yeah, so that's about it. So all three cans, service can, dual brake can or maxi can, and then the piggyback, which, like I said, we use a ton of. I don't know if a lot of people do, but this is my best friend because I hate changing cans, especially when you don't need to. This is way easy once you learn how to do it. You can do them very quickly. I can probably change a piggyback in 30 minutes. So really helps us out here in the shop, be able to get stuff in and out. One last thing I'm going to show you. This is a caging tool. This should come with every can. This is it right here. It's got a spot for it on every can. Sits like that. If your can doesn't have it, it's because the mechanic that put it on took it. These are very handy to have. I got a toolbox full of them because sometimes you need to go out on the road and cage 4 brakes or 6 brakes, and we'll do a whole separate video on this with it on the truck so you can see how it works. Basically, it goes up in the back here. I don't know if you can see up in there, there's a little key, little teeny slotted hole, looks like that right there. That goes up in the back of there, and you just got to hit it just right, and it turns, and then you just tighten up this nut. I don't think I got it in there. It goes up in there, you turn it, you tighten up the nut like that, and you can do this with an end wrench. It doesn't have to be it just takes a little more time, but as you tighten the nut, it compresses this spring, which pulls this plunger back and basically releases the brakes manually. Don't need air. And the service side will still work, but you do not have a parking brake, so please be aware that you do not have a parking brake. Very seldom you have to release a bunch of cans. Usually you got a can hanging up, you need to get off the road. You can grab the caging tool out of the can, cage that brake, and allow yourself to get to a shop where you can get that piggyback replaced or the entire can if that's what they decide to do. But yeah, later video we will cage one on a truck, and also we'll do a wheel end so you can see where this actually hooks to the slack adjuster, to the S-cam, to the brake, and kind of see it all working. But hopefully that sheds a little light on how the brake can works. Hopefully I didn't confuse you. We change a lot of these in the in the diesel world, but just wanted to show you how it works, and hopefully it helped you out. Thanks.